Can you hear me? This is Sam Trusso.
I can hear you, Sam.
Okay. Yeah. I remember
You don't thrive on drama?
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was your bag. Not Greta's.
No, it's the side street over there.
We
got
your hand
that was the
We do canvas.
Gabe.
Can't hear anything.
Yeah, they muted the boardroom.
Oh, okay.
Oh, now they've unmuted it, I think. Or, not sure.
JJ, we can hear everyone. Sam, we can hear you as well. We were just muted in the boardroom until we got started, so you don't get the back feed of everyone having
Okay,
some
thanks.
chit chat.
Elizabeth, I have a question. I'm really struggling with pain. I have a migraine. I'm just wondering if I'm needed for quorum.
No, we're fine for quorum, JJ.
Okay, my apologies then. I'm just gonna give my regrets.
Not a problem.
You will.
Okay. Ready to roll, Mary Ann?
Yep.
Okay. Bring this meeting to order. Okay. First we have land acknowledgement. Go ahead.
Kettle Creek Conservation Authority wishes to acknowledge the treaty and traditional lands originally occupied by the Indigenous First Nation peoples of the Anishinaabe, Attawaddarun, and Haudenosaunee nations. KCC strives to build meaningful relationships with Indigenous communities and recognizes the importance of respecting these treaties and lands.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Maybe we should do roll call now.
Lori Baldwin Sands. Present. Frank Burrs.
Present.
Jim Herbert. Jim did send, he might be joining late. Sharon McMillan. Here. Todd Noble.
Here.
Jerry Cribble.
Yes.
JJ Strybosh sends regrets. Sam Trousseau.
Here?
John Wilson.
Here.
Grant Jones.
Here.
So, Mr. Chair, we have 8 of 10 members present.
Thank you. I'll ask if there's any declarations of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, we have no hearing board today. So we'll go down to minutes. First, we have the minutes of the August 7th Executive Committee meeting. Any questions about that, concerns? Now we have recommendations. The minutes of the August 7th, 2024 Executive Committee meeting be approved. Need a mover. Sharon and Todd, seconds.
Baldwin Sands.
Yes.
Burrs.
Yes, sorry.
Herbert. Sorry. McMillan.
Yes.
Noble.
Yes.
Cribble.
Yes.
Trousseau.
Yes.
Wilson.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
That motion passes.
Here. Next, we have the full authority meeting minutes for June 19th. Any errors or omissions? All right, morning. That's right. Morning, everybody.
Last one in brings donuts, Jim.
I did. I ate it before I got in here. I don't see any errors or omissions. That minutes of the 19th, 2024 full authority meeting be approved. Frank and Todd?
On the motion, Alderman Sands?
Yes.
Burrs?
Yes.
Herbert?
I better abstain because I don't know what the motion was.
McMillan?
Yes.
Noble?
Yes.
Fribble?
Yes.
Christo?
Yes,
Wilson?
Yes.
And Jones?
Yes.
That motion passes.
And lastly, June 19th, hearing board, any questions, concerns? Not, recommendation is that minutes of the June 19th, 2024 hearing board be approved. Move in second, please. Noble and Herbert?
Alderman Sands?
Yes.
Burrs?
Yes.
Herbert?
Yes.
McMillan?
Yes.
Noble?
Yes.
Fribble?
Yes.
Christo?
yes,
Wilson?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
And that motion passes.
And moving down to matters rising, first we have meeting report from Mary Ann.
Yeah, so very active social media month for us. Mostly highlighting our campgrounds and some of our trails. And we did want to remind folks that we do have accessible chairlifts for the pools, and then of course the accessible dock at Lake Whitaker. So get some nice feedback from commenters. And a little highlight on events and upcoming posting for the planning and regs supervisor.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Any questions from Mary Ann? Frank, go ahead.
Just clarification, what do you mean by impressions, reach and engagement? Could you just talk to those?
Yeah, so impressions is how many times the posting would have appeared on a page. So the accessible chairlift is a great example of a really good organic result. So 20,000 impressions, so appearances on different pages. It reached an audience of 19,000. And we had 232 engagements, which would be a like, a comment, a share. Yeah.
Anything else, Mary Ann? Just before we move on, I'd like to congratulate Mary Ann on her new position, Western. Congratulations, and we wish you well. We're gonna miss you here, especially being the coordinator of the food truck challenge. He's got some big shoes to fill.
Can we hold it down?
Anyway, good luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you.
You can still organize the food truck thing, right?
I mean, I'm open to whatever. I love that event.
Well, you can multitask. Okay.
Okay, moving on to project tracking, Elizabeth.
So Mary Ann's last task is relaunching the Deer Ridge Conservation Area. It's now rescheduled for September 12th, and we're hoping for good weather to finally have that event open for the public. The Rewild the Family program, this is a program organized by the trust. It allows families who have never camped before because of economic or social means to have an opportunity to camp at Dalewood. The trust provides all of the gear free of charge and a free campsite for the weekend. So there was 3 families that have been rewild this season, and will be enjoying a weekend of camping at Dalewood. Jen was successful in obtaining $9,000 again from the Department of Fisheries of Oceans to do some municipal drain classification. She's been able to get that funding for a number of years now. We've hosted a number of volunteer events for the Kettle Creek Environmental Youth Corps, and I'm organizing a TD Trees Days planting event again this year. This time it'll be held on September 14th in Patterson to infill some trees down there. And the historical show was last weekend down at Dan Patterson.
Any questions for Elizabeth? If not, we'll move down to watershed conditions and Jennifer. Go ahead, Jen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Pretty quiet couple of months for watershed conditions. We've had a lot of rain, but not as much as we had at the same time last year, which was like 3 times as much as normal. So, I mean, it's a lot, it seemed like a lot, but it wasn't too bad. We were able to release some snapping turtle hatchlings that were collected in the spring. And that was successful and back into a suitable habitat. And yeah. That's it.
Thanks, Jen. Any questions? Go ahead, Jeff.
To the chair, actually two questions. With the heavy rain and stuff, I know it fluctuates. Is there a big concern with that, for you people here, when that rain, torrential downfall come down and?
We have a good system of being able to model and monitor like how that rain might affect the watershed. So we're able to take, recent weather forecasts, and we have stream gauges and rain gauges and a lot of other outside information, as well as the Surface Water Monitoring Center with the MNRF. So they can provide us information as well, and we take all that information and then assess whether or not we would, if it meets the criteria of like a watershed condition statement, water safety, or
Yeah.
flood outlook, or a flood warning, or a flood watch. So that's kind of what we use that information. So, I mean, the rain is also pretty spatial. So like they'll say you're gonna get 60 millimeters in this area, and then we may not see any of it. So it just depends on
Where you are.
right?
Okay, so follow up to the chair. When you release all the turtles, how many survive? Is there a percentage that always?
So think about turtles as if you have 100 eggs, you may only get one. Well, actually, the stats say it's less than one, but let's say for argument's sake, one turtle may make it to breeding.
Seriously?
So snapping turtles have a really long lifespan, so they don't mature till they're about 20 years old. So if you kill, if a turtle dies before it reaches 20 years, like you're setting that population back quite a bit. So every turtle that lays eggs, like that's why that recovery and incubation program that is run out of the Upper Thames is so important, because they're able to, at least give more of an opportunity for those turtles to survive.
What's the average age they live to, or how long?
They can live for at least 100 years.
Isn't that interesting? Because my daughter, Rochelle, had a pet turtle for 10 years. Took it down to Waterworks. They had pictures of it releasing it into the ponds. So it could still be around.
Good.
Interesting. I'll have to tell Rochelle that. Thank you very much. Okay.
Okay, I guess one comment, at the bottom of your information package. Visual.
Yeah.
Taken conversions to metal, etc. So is it because of the drastic fall? Because Dodd Creek at Amazon, which isn't that far away, it's pretty much level with the ground, and by the time it gets down to, say, the south side of Tallville, it's like 50 feet down. So is it just a massive drop that
I think the color difference that you're seeing in that confluence is a lot to do with the subsurface of the creek. So Dodd Creek is really clay based, and Kettle is a lot more sandy, gravelly, silty. So that's kind of what causes that color change. And plus like what you were saying about the erosion, like things, it erodes a lot more in the Dodd Creek mouth. So you get a lot more sediment. So you can definitely see the difference. But sometimes it switches. Sometimes Dodd Creek will be really clear and Kettle will be really turbid. So it just depends on where the rain is coming and how it's going.
Okay, thank you. Anything further for Jen? Not a recommendation that staff reports on matters arising A through C be received. Lori, Jen?
Alden Sands. Yes. Bruce.
Yes.
Herbert.
Yes.
McMillan. Yes. Noble.
Yeah.
Cribble.
Yes.
Rousseau.
Yes.
Wilson.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
That motion passes.
Okay, we have correspondence. First items from Conservation Ontario to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing regarding removing barriers for additional residential units. Any comments from your side, Elizabeth?
No, it's mainly just for information.
Any comments from on the table?
No. Interesting read.
And next, letter from Ian Thompson regarding Dale Conservation Area on August 3rd. Elizabeth, any comments there?
And no further comments. Staff have reached out to Mr. Thompson and took various, continue to take various steps about speed limits at Dalewood. It is, in any campground, I think it's one of the hardest rules to enforce throughout the season. And often user groups need reminders. There's big yellow signs throughout the campground, but it's that face-to-face reminders that the staff often do with user groups throughout the season. And I think this particular weekend was just one where we needed a little bit more face-to-face with some of the users to make sure that those calming habits in terms of going slower in the campgrounds were enforced.
Question, Frank?
So through you to Elizabeth, does staff notice what he's saying or not?
This particular laneway where this camper is tends to be, I would say, a more thorough roadway to other areas in the campground. So it is an area where vehicles might have a tendency to go faster than the speed limit. It is an area that the staff focus on, and there has been additional signage put up in place there.
Sharon?
Through the chair, when you responded to him, was he satisfied?
I reached out and didn't get a call back.
So, through the chair, Elizabeth, is this something you put in writing to them, or are you just gonna call and tell them on the phone?
I think that the staff at the park have had discussions with him. I offered to speak to him as well and didn't get a response back. So
Because I think it is.
yeah, I consider this matter resolved unless I hear from the camp.
Is there such a thing as speed bumps might work in there to slow people down, some of those bad spots?
That all of those measures have been considered before by from.
Okay. Thank you.
Further? Not, I have a recommendation that the correspondence be received.
Baldwin Sands.
Yes.
Spurs.
Yes.
Herbert.
Yes.
McMillan.
Yes.
Noble.
Yes.
Cribble.
Yes.
Trousseau.
Yes.
Wilson.
Yes.
And Jones.
Yes.
And that motion passes.
Okay, moving down to the statement of revenue and expense, you have it before you. Any questions or concerns for Elizabeth?
No.
This is
Wait.
Jerry. I do have a couple of questions.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Okay, so through the chair to the staff, when I look at the revenue portion, the donations is of course very high. And if I look at the currently, we actually reached our revenues. If the Ministry of Natural Resources comes through the 61,000, then we reached it. Are we planning to do something with the donations? And are we planning to still, if it's gonna stay in revenues, are we still planning to transfer the reserves for capital and operating?
Mr. Chair, to Jerry, those donations are extremely high because the land donation that we received earlier in the year is within those donations. And then it goes back to, you can see the expense, a corresponding expense down in volunteer and fundraising, where that land donation will go over to our capital assets at year end. So those numbers are overly inflated right now, but will be addressed at year end with the auditor.
Okay, thank you for that. And that was my next question in terms of the volunteer fundraising, the 773,000. Are we still planning to transfer from reserves for capital and operating before the year end?
There's a number of capital expenses, Mr. Chair, that have not been undertaken yet this year. And the operating reserves, I don't expect that we would need the full transfer from reserves. But again, there's a number of operating things that were earmarked for those that simply just haven't been undertaken yet. So I think it's a little premature for me to answer that question right now.
Okay, thank you very much. No more questions.
Thank you, Jerry. Anything further for Elizabeth on the report?
Actually, sorry, I always ask these questions from the staff. Any concerns in terms of the receivables, payables, or anything what's in front of us? Any concerns?
Mr. Chair, to Jerry, no concerns at this time.
Thank you very much.
Okay, anything further? If not, recommendation reads that the statement of revenue and expense dated June 30th, 2024 be approved. Mover and seconder. Todd and Secretary Jerry, you want a second?
Yes.
Baldwin Sands.
Yes.
Burrs.
Yes.
Herbert.
Yes.
McMillan.
Yes.
Noble.
Yes.
Gribble.
Yes.
Trousseau.
Yes.
Wilson.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes,
And that motion passes.
thank you. Moving on to new business. First, is the CA Act update, and the floor is yours.
I'm gonna let Betsy handle.
Oh,
this one.
Betsy, okay, go ahead, Betsy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you may recall, we're required to create a watershed-based resource management strategy before the end of this year. And that strategy must include guiding principles and objectives, which you approved in draft at the March meeting for circulation. We have to summarize studies and monitoring that informs our programs and services, undertake a review of our programs and services to ensure they comply, and then identify actions, issues and risk mitigation to address those issues we've identified. Part of that is that we have to have a process for periodic review, and that the strategy must be made publicly once we're all done on KCCA's website. So next page. What I thought was most important to bring forward to just review today was the issues and risks and mitigation measures. So the full strategy was provided in your advanced package, but I thought I would just highlight the issues and risks that we identified today. So we identified 6 overall risks. The first being funding, and that's a common concern across all program areas of KCCA, given that 47% of our budget is self-funded. So when looking at mitigation measures, we align our 4-year budget process with strategic work plan development. We secure self-generated revenue through funding proposals, donations, fee for service, and user fees. We conduct regular reviews of service provider fees to identify where costs can be reduced. There's a need to advocate for sustainable long-term funding in coordination with Conservation Ontario. We maintain financial reserves to buffer against those years of uncertainty. And we can take advantage of economies of scale by planning bulk purchases and long-term contracts. When it comes to staffing, we have a small staffing complement, and many of our staff have multiple roles and responsibilities. So things that we can do to help address this risk is continue to secure funds to support staffing through employment grants, funding proposals, fee for service work, and ensure we have sufficient budget through that 4-year budget process. Focusing really on programs and services that align with the objectives to make the most of our limited staff resources. We can look for opportunities to partner with other organizations and municipalities to apply for joint funding opportunities and leveraging our combined resources. Constantly improving upon policies to ensure that we are an employer of choice. And just identifying ways where we can evaluate our current operations for efficiencies. The next one is aging infrastructure. As you know, we will continue to need major maintenance, repairs, or replacement for our buildings, structures, flood and erosion control structures as well. So in this sense, we employ a capital asset management plan. Once again, that 4-year budget process to ensure sufficient funding. We can continue to inspect our structures and do routine maintenance to maximize their useful life. continue to secure grant funding to offset the costs. Purchase materials in bulk to reduce the costs. I think once again, advocacy for increased government funding, specifically for infrastructure projects. And just developing and maintaining contingency plans for failure and ensuring adequate insurance coverage. Next, we have increased demands on conservation areas. I think it's no surprise to anyone with the expanding development in this area that we are seeing increased usage on our properties. Looking from 2019 to 2023, we had a 26% increase in visitors. So we need to continually monitor and adjust our user fees to generate the revenue needed for maintenance and improvements. In that 4-year budget cycle, budgeting for increased maintenance upgrades on our properties, increasing staff presence on our lands to enforce our rules and regulations. Conserving lands need additional, or conservation lands need additional funding to restrict some of the prohibited uses we may see more and more of through signage, gates, and enforcement. And acquiring new properties as funding allows to have more recreational opportunities across the watershed. The next one is data management. So obviously data management risks and issues can impact our operations and decision-making and just overall effectiveness. So we will continue to apply for funding to support updated data and information and hazard mapping. Seek out low-cost, no-cost software options, continue to implement a comprehensive cybersecurity framework, and regularly updating and maintaining our hardware and software systems, and having agreements for data ownership and usage rights. The last one is legislative changes. Recently, there's been changes to the Conservation Authorities Act that have introduced new documents and things that we must create and maintain over the years. But also there was a new Section 28 regulation, and obviously this can impact the way we do business, and there's also associated updates required for policies and procedures because of these changes. So once again, no surprise that we will continue to explore alternative funding sources to offset the loss of government funding. Once again, strengthen our collaborative networks with other CAs, municipalities, and environmental organizations to leverage our collective resources, engage in policy advocacy in partnership with Conservation Ontario to ensure that the CA interests are being represented, and just implementing flexible planning to respond to these changes. So next slide, I just wanted to review those with you today because what we are looking for the board's approval basically to put the draft strategy out for consultation. That is a requirement of this process, and it's basically, there isn't a prescribed way we must consult, but it's in a way that the CA deems advisable. So we are proposing a 4-week consultation period where we will be sending letters out to our participating municipalities and neighboring Indigenous communities, advising of the consultation period. We'll also be sending notifications out to our watershed stakeholders, advising of the draft strategy, as well as posting the strategy to our website with a feedback form and notifying our community members via social media. Once that consultation period is done, we will bring back a summary of the consultation and basically a final strategy for your approval. Okay. Next slide. So today the recommendation is that the staff report on the draft watershed-based resource management strategy be received, and further that the draft watershed strategy be approved for public consultation.
Thanks, Betsy. Any questions for Betsy? Lori?
One of the things I didn't see in the report is to build a relationship with the private sector. So that it would be something that I would recommend is that private sector sponsorships, et cetera, be added to that. And the second is, it was a concern of mine when I read it, the reserve funds that are threaded throughout that. I appreciate getting the reserve funds and building up reserve funds, but they should also be capped at a certain percentage, because some of our neighboring support groups in our municipalities may say, why are you dipping into your reserve funds? So if that is indeed the case, in order to offset some of the tax implications to our neighboring municipalities, it's just something to put on the radar. Thank you.
Frank?
Yeah, so we, through you, Grant, so we have an asset management plan where we're tracking everything. And what we do every year, people say, oh, this thing's gonna last a few more years, or it's done now and you adjust it, correct?
Yeah, I'll let Elizabeth speak to any of the asset management
Is
questions.
that how it works?
Correct, yeah.
All right, so, my opinion is, are we struggling to put money into reserves? Like, do we have enough to meet what the asset management plan says?
Currently, right now, that's why we have the kind of the 5-year forecast
Yeah.
is that the dam would be the only thing that, you know, we're struggling with right now, which is a big,
That's a big one.
item.
Okay, so when is the dam coming up where we have to make it, we have to pull the string on that one and go at it? Is it 3 years or 2 years?
Yeah, it would be 2 or 3 years. We have to get through the environmental assessment, decide what we want to do, and then go out in an RFP for the work.
So further follow on then, do we come under MECP? Is that the Ministry, the Conservation Authorities fall under? Ministry of Environment?
Partially, and then the MNRF is
Okay.
the other region.
So we're reliant then basically, whatever grant programs these two ministries have come out to you and they make it known, and then you try to apply for that, right? Those are the two?
Correct.
And then I also heard Department of Fisheries Canada, is that, the federal government have anything?
There's always grants and other sources of funding that come up. We would tailor we always have a list of things that we're looking for money for, and as grants and funding comes up from the
Yeah.
various departments, then we're applying for it.
I just haven't, they're not prominent when you go to AMO, those two ministries. And the thrust in Ontario right now is build and almost like bulldoze over the environmental side of things. And just another comment, we made a pitch that they're not giving, and this was through infrastructure, whoever it was, King of CERN, but there's not enough money going to conservation authorities. Like their little pittances on flooding, right? Okay, so that's just a comment. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. Well, my first comment is, what a great report Betsy and Elizabeth have done here. There's a lot of information, found it very interesting. Water quality, we all take it for granted, and just a lot of good stuff. So with such a huge report, and you may not want to answer this right now, maybe you want to get back to me later. But were there any red flags identified when you went through this report that you thought were going to be a problem somewhere down the road that you really couldn't identify in the report? Because the report's pretty inclusive.
I don't think so. I think a lot of this report was more of a summary exercise of existing information. For us, as we, I think, have indicated before, this is a checking the boxes exercise of new requirements for the CA Act. So a lot of it was background information that we're just putting in one place. The issues in risks and mitigation measures is perhaps a little new for us, and that's why we wanted the board's thoughts on it, but also putting it out to the public. But I wouldn't say anything that came up wasn't issues that we already know exist, right? Staffing levels or funding. Those are all pretty consistent year over year.
It's such an inclusive report. I just wondered if there was something going on you really didn't want to identify in the report that you found. And thank you. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Any other questions? If not, a resolution that the staff report on the draft watershed-based resource management strategy be received, and further that the draft watershed-based resource management strategy be approved for public consultation. Mover and seconder, please. Wilson and Noble.
Alderman Sands.
Yes.
Burrs,
Yes.
Herbert,
Yes.
McMillan,
Yes.
Noble,
Yes.
Cribble,
Yes.
Rousseau,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
And that motion passes.
Moving down to our monthly planning regulations report from Joe. Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just looking for receipt of the staff's reporting and advance package, just summarizing all of the planning approvals and permits since the last meeting.
Questions, concerns? No. So obviously Joe is leaving us as well in a couple of weeks, and Joe, I'd like to thank you for the years of service here, and it's been great. Good luck with your new job at Upper Thames. Have a word with your chair up there, but anyway, good luck in your future endeavors, Joe. Thank you so much for your work. So the recommendations of the July and August 2024 planning and regulations activity report be received. Sharon and Frank?
Alderman Sands.
Yes.
Burrs,
Yes.
Herbert,
Yes.
McMillan,
Yes.
Noble,
Yes.
Cribble,
Yes.
Rousseau,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
and that motion passes.
Okay. Closed session, moving into closed session.
Actually, Mr. Chair, if we can recess and go to the Kettle Creek Source Protection Authority
Sure.
and then go into close.
Yep, all right. So you look motion to recess?
No,
Go ahead.
just a question through the chair. I just personally want to thank Joel for all his work here. I know we've had a lot of controversies since I've been on the board 5 or 6 years, and you've always stepped up to the plate. You know, you've done a great job, so appreciated by me, I'm sure by everybody else, but thank you very much. Good luck.
Come here, Jasper.
Go
My
ahead.
bad.
I think that.
Time's ticking.
It's become contentious since you came on board.
Yeah. You're too loud.
Okay, motion to
Sure,
go into the hearing,
recess.
recess, motion to recess. Sharon, Frank?
We're all yes.
Can we recess at 10:36?
Okay. So anybody need a quick break or keep soldiering on?
Are the donuts here? I mean.
Keep moving on. So we'll move into Source Protection Authority. I don't imagine there's any declarations of pecuniary interest. No delegations, so minutes from the Source Protection Authority of April 17th, 2024. Any questions, concerns? So resolution reads that the minutes of this April 17th, 2024 Kettle Creek Source Protection Authority be approved. Over seconder, please. Noble and Frank.
Alderman Sands.
Yes.
Burrs,
Yes.
Herbert,
Yes.
McMillan,
Yes.
Noble,
Yes.
Cribble,
Yes.
Trousseau,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
and that motion passes.
And we have the April 30th, 2024, April 25th, 2024, and March 28th, 2024. Lake Erie Regional Source Protection Committee meeting minutes. Any questions, concerns there? Any comments from your side, Elizabeth? Can't think.
No, they're just for information.
So recommendation is that the minutes of the April 30th, 2024, Lake Erie Source Protection Regional Management Committee, and the minutes of the April 25th and 28th, 2024, Lake Erie Source Protection Committee meeting minutes be received. With respect to the police. Todd and Jim.
Yep.
Alderman Sands.
Yes.
Burrs,
Yes.
Herbert,
Yes.
McMillan.
Yes.
Noble.
Yes.
Cribble,
Yes.
Trousseau,
Yes.
Wilson.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
And that motion's carried.
Okay, moving down to new business, approval of the updated asset assessment report and the Kettle Creek Source Protection Plan.
Mr. Chair, this is really just for information of members. To recall earlier, I think late 2023, we brought the updates for the assessment report and the source protection plan. Those were approved by the minister on June 24th and are effective as of August 12th, 2024. These are the first updates that we've done to the assessment reports and the source protection plan since they were first approved way back in 2014. So basically, they just bring both reports align now with new technical guides. There's new and amended mapping, new and amended information on surface water quality and groundwater quality. There was a removal of commercial fertilizer threat from the Elginnary water supply system because that was eliminated, which is always good news. And then there was certain additions as well for climate change considerations. So those were all previously reviewed by you, but then they went off to the minister for approval. This is just recognition that both of those documents received approval from the minister. And now, as of August 12th, both of the documents are now posted on our website and on the Lake Erie Regional Source Protection website as well for the public. So good news that the approvals went through, and it's nice to have both of these documents updated moving forward. So no action required, just information.
Any questions? I guess well, we have some new members, and we do have the water intake for the Elginnary Primary Water Board, which is our main concern. I don't believe we have the well in Belmont anymore, or is it still?
No, it's still considered, yeah.
So those are our two concerns that we need to be aware of. I know that Amo, there's a mayor of a eastern township that was not very happy with the source protection committee down there because they're stalling on development. Well, normally that would mean that it's most likely a water recharge for the groundwater. And I'm guessing that's probably why they're probably trying to build on top of a water recharge areas, which would be concerning for well water. So we're lucky that most of ours comes from the lake, and it's a little easier to deal with, but there are areas where it is a challenge, especially where well water is the main source of your drinking water.
Just a question,
Okay.
Removal of commercial fertilizer threat. Can you just give us some info on that? What was it about?
Down in Port Stanley, there used to be large silos that contained commercial fertilizer. I believe it was sold, and then those fertilizer containers were removed. So at the time when we were doing the initial plan, they were still there and considered a threat, and now it's been removed.
Were they leaching or just a threat?
No, it's just a threat because if they did leach, they were in close proximity to the intake.
Gotcha. Okay.
And back to the drinking water.
Essentially, when there's still a port and the ships that come in and offload potash or whatever, they're the dome silos that are sitting right along the edge of the wharf. Big rain, it tends to mitigate over the edge of the docks, but they're no longer there. Okay, any other questions or concerns? This is just for information purposes, so other than that, next meeting as required. You need a motion to come out?
I'll just take a mover to adjourn the meeting at 10:43.
Sharon, second Todd.
And I consider everyone in favor of that.
I mean, you don't want to stay. Going back, we'll now go into closed session.